أهلا بيكم في دروس الأحياء للصف الثاني ثانوي لغات. And today's lecture will continue our discussion of respiration, so let's begin. Now we've reached the respiration in man. Respiratory system in man begins with the nose and mouth and ends as formation of the lungs. Okay, we take air enters through the nose or mouth, but it's advisable to take the major air by nose because the nose is modified to moisten the incoming air by having mucus glands, by warming it up, by having so many blood vessels inside it, so it warms up the air entering the body. And because of the hair in the nose, it acts like a filter for, together with the mucus, of course, together they are trapped for any foreign body that's entering the body. So this is the how it starts, the respiratory system. Now the air is pushed into the pharynx that opens into two passages. The one in front is the trachea, and the one behind is the pharynx for the esophagus, I mean, for the passage of food. So we're talking about the front one now, which is the trachea. Air enters the trachea. The trachea is about a series of cartilages, about 3/4 of a ring, and backwards it's completed by a smooth muscle called trachealis. You don't have to learn this. The cartilages prevent the trachea from collapsing, and the smooth muscle, we can control the width of the trachea. We can narrow it down or widen it up. The trachea divides into two main bronchi, and each bronchus is divided into subbronchi, and so on, being even smaller and smaller with each division until we reach the bronchioles and bronchial sac, and then the alveoli. These are the alveoli, as you can see here. The alveoli is the site of exchange of oxygen and CO2 because it's surrounded by capillary bed, venous side with arterial side. Also along the tract there are cilia that tend to push beat upwards, tending to create air and mucus currents to expel the foreign bodies out of the respiratory tract. Okay, so started by nose and mouth, pharynx, larynx and trachea, bronchioles, bronchi and bronchioles, and then the alveoli. The alveolar walls, I told you, they are surrounded by blood capillaries, and the exchange of CO2 and O2 occurs there. The blood delivers the CO2 it carried out from the tissues of the body and accepts O2 from the air inside the alveoli that goes to the blood by simple diffusion. Also, the respiratory system in man plays an important role in excretion of water because there is water at the alveolar walls, and with the daily losses of water is about 500 cubic centimeters of water through the lungs because of the evaporation of water that moistens the alveolar membranes. Water is necessary for dissolving oxygen and carbon dioxide in the blood, in the plasma. Respiration in plant, the green plant, I mean, we studied how the nutrition takes part, and then how the conversion into complex organ molecules to be ready to broken down to simpler ones so as to utilize them for energy. breaking down of carbon bonds of the organic substances. This is the process of respiration in plants, to break down the carbon bonds of the organic substances formed, the sugars, different types of sugars. If oxygen is present, aerobic respiration takes place. If not, anaerobic respiration takes place. Okay? In the case, how do air gets into the plant? Well, it gets into it through the stomata. Stomata means openings on the leaf. It enters the air chambers in the leaf, fills it with air. Also, gas diffuses through cell membranes, so it travels from cell to cell. Also, the oxygen is carried to the phloem passageway from the leaves and stems to be distributed all over the plant. Also, the oxygen is in the solutes in the soil, and it gets into the plant through the roots by imbibition. Remember, dissolved in the solutes in the soil. Also, it enters through any cracks in the bark of the plant. So it may enter through stomata on the leaf, diffuses from through cell membranes, and carried out by phloem passageway, dissolved in water and solutes, and through the roots by the process of imbibition, okay, or through the cracks in the bark of any plant. This is how the air gets inside the plant. CO2 results from respiration and expelled out to the external environment by direct diffusion from plant cells. From the deep-seated cells, it's carried out by the xylem vessels or phloem tissue to the leaves, and then from the pores in the leaf to be expelled, the CO2. And there's a close connection between the process of photosynthesis to form the complex starch or sugars that enters for the production of ATP and consuming of energy, and the end products are carbon dioxide and water, which are used again during the process of photosynthesis. And this is the link between photosynthesis and respiration. There are experiments done to prove that respiration takes place in plants. For example, this one, bring a pot and plant a green plant in it, and put it under a bill jar together with a cup or beaker with lime water. Lime water is calcium hydroxide اللي هو مية الجير. لايم واتر. ايه المتوقع يعني؟ انت ليه حاطط لايم واتر؟ لانه هيرياكت مع السي او 2 لو طلع ويبقى تربد. هي دي الملاحظه اللي موجوده في البلانت. المهم ان واحده تحط تحتيها جرين بلانت، التانيه ما تحطش تحتيها اي بلانت، وفي بيكر اوف لايم واتر موجود. هتلاقي ان العكاره موجوده only in the lime water beaker, which is inside the bill jar together with the plant. This proves that the plant has respired and produced CO2. Okay? ليه كمان غطينا البيل جار ده بpiece of cloth؟ علشان نمنع process of photosynthesis which uses up the produced CO2. اوكي؟ فهيبقى في واحد بس في الحالة الأولانية بس اللي هو البيل جار اللي متغطي اللي تحتيه الجرين بلانت هو اللايم واتر بقى تربد، في التانيين لأ. تجربة تانية ان جيب محلول سكري زي العسل الاسود مثلا مخفف. بعدين حطهم في فلاسك زي ما انت شايف هنا. حط رابر ستوبر موجودة عند قمة الفلاسك، عدي تيوب، والفري اند اوف ذا تيوب تحطها في لايم واتر. ايه اللي متوقع يحصل؟ ان هنا الفيرمنتيشن هيحصل، جاز بابل هتتكون وهتطلع في التيوب وهتعكر اللايم واتر. ده بسبب الريسبيريشن اوف ييست، تنفس الخميره. Also there is another kind of fermentation called acid fermentation, carried out by several kinds of bacteria. It produces acid instead of alcohol, like the case in the yeast. Okay, and many milk products, by the way, count on this issue, this fermentation type, this type of fermentation. I hope you got the maximum benefit from this lecture, and thank you very much for watching.